Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast with myself Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by the head of sport in Nenagh Guardian, Shane Brophy, and delighted that we have John Madden on the show as well. By the way, the Nenagh Guardian is out now, so if you want to get all the preview for this weekend and review of what happened against Offaly last weekend, go and pick that up in the shops. Brilliant to have you on the show, John. How are things with you? You well?
Great, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Shane, yourself this morning?
Oh yeah, looking forward to this one. John is another apostle there across the river with John Mack. They're trying to teach him a few things or two, so I hope don't forget about it over there.
Yeah, we get plenty of stick, but sure, look at it. It's a great rivalry, I suppose, all around.
Yeah, Laura and Portumna. We're talking about just a stretch of a bridge there, John. What's the rivalry like between Galway and Tipperary?
Sure. Look, a lot of Laura lads would have gone to school in Portumna, and I suppose to look at it a bit like last weekend, the other side of the parish would have gone to school in Burr. So you have rivalries on both sides. But look at the Galway lads love to give the Tip lads lots of stick. Like as I said, they'd have more. I suppose in the school there was only a few of us, but at the same time, sure, look, we gave as good as we got, and sure there was plenty of banter, and I suppose. I think that there's great rivalry, but Galway love to beat Tipperary. They love to. I think there's a little bit of, there's something in them that they feel that they can beat Tipperary. So I think now this is a match that Tipperary really have to be up for.
Yeah, Shane, you were very worried about a dogfight against Offaly at the weekend. I was a little bit more confident. It turned out to be fairly routine.
Yeah, no, I said in the press box after 4 minutes when Tip went 3 or 4 points up. I said this is over. Like, as a Tip were on it. Like they were hungry, loads of energy. Like just the 3-week break seemed to have energized them, and look, they had the match won at half time. Look, I don't think it would have taken an awful lot out of them, and I sort of like the ruthless streak, not just of how they went about their business last weekend, but even Liam Cahill at half-time, I would have assumed Liam would have whipped off maybe 4 of his key players and said, okay, we'll mind a few guys for next week. No, he left them all out there, and like his first sub was after 47 minutes, and that was enforced with Craig Morgan's hamstring getting tight. So essentially, it was not until I think the 50th minute when Enda Heffernan came on for Ronan Maher was the first tactical change he made. Like he was more or less, he was taken awfully as seriously as Limerick, and just getting that mentality into the guys that we're not going soft here at all. We're going to the final whistle, and if they take that mentality into next Saturday, I think it will take a serious Galway performance to beat Tipperary.
Yeah, no matter who you're playing, like you have to bring your best game. Like so, it's look at Tipperary needed that match after the Waterford game. And the Waterford game had a life of its own, but Tipperary needed that match to get up to pace. You could see like Munster was crazy, the hurling was crazy, and Munster it was tenacious. It had everything, but at the end of the day, nobody in Leinster will tell you that they're any less than anyone in Munster. So at the moment Galway are playing in Leinster, so this is going to be this is going to go down to the wire. I do think that Tipperary are in a very good place, but they have to bring that, to the table.
Yeah, John, I remember a few years ago, like when you were selector with Tipperary, chatting to you in Thurles, and you were talking about how you'd had a chat with Jason Ford to sit down and you've been on the panel a few years ago. It's about time that you really embraced being one of the leaders of the team. And he put on a fair scoring show the other day. Now, he'll obviously have to back it up against one of the big teams this weekend, but can you talk to us about his progression and what you said to him?
Yeah. Look, I suppose Jason Ford is a phenomenal talent, and everybody, not just in Tipperary, but everybody around the country recognises that. I suppose what I really love about Jason Ford at the minute, he's really after stepping up as a leader. And I suppose you look at every year, leaders need to come on board. And, you had the Shamie Cannons and the Bonners and all these lads, but now they're still there and they are leaders in their own right. But these other fellas have to be the key men to drive this force. I suppose at that time, look at Jason Ford had a lot of hurling done, and I suppose he wasn't. He wasn't fully nailing down a starting position, and with the talent that he had, it should have been automatic. So Jason had to bring something new to the table because he had all the skill set. And I mean, I suppose what did we say to him that time? Look at it was really put back in his own court. Like he needed to go away and do something different. And Jason Ford I mean, when we were, I suppose, a few weeks later, or maybe a couple of months later, when we were assessing players, Jason Ford had come on as regards strength and conditioning and everything, had come on leaps and bounds and turned himself inside out, and that took hard work on his own. Like he took what we said to him on the chin that day, and I mean that year he was close to that following year he was close to hurler of the year. But I suppose one thing, like when we had our chat that time, I remember sitting in the room and saying to the lads, right, after he made that phenomenal change, I said, we need to give him the lead. We need to give him a leadership role, put him back in his where he always played his best hurling, give him the freeze, give him rope to do stuff and stand off him a little bit and let him go and see how it goes, because he has the tools. And look, he's gone leaps and bounds, and he's a fantastic player, and he's going to be a huge part of this Tipperary this weekend and every weekend. And I'm telling you, the Galway lads will have to be watching him, because I think that if he gets ball half right, he's practically unmarkable at the moment.
Shane,
he just looks unburdened at the moment. There's always times where he felt he was going out on the field and he felt he felt under pressure, and maybe he was one eye in the sideline. He just doesn't. He looks unburdened now. He looks like he's okay. I belong here. I'm a leader in this team. I'm nearly the first name on the team sheet in the forward line, like maybe along with Noel McGrath, like so. And I suppose I think the crucial thing for Tip now going forward is that he's fresh. Like he's sick. He's had 6 weeks out with the hamstring. He didn't get killed in Munster. I thought he was excellent last week. Like 2-4 for play out, 2-11. His second goal was brilliant. That one-handed pull overhead. I'm looking forward to seeing where to position him this Sunday or Saturday. I think he's made for full forward on Sunday. I think Gerard McInerney is. I think he's struggling a bit back there, and I think somebody like Jason with maybe the busy bees of Ford and Keogh buzzing around him really could cause that Galway full backline ferocious trouble.
He's brought I suppose he what I liked about him as well. Look, you don't want to take away from the skills that he has, but he's brought that bit of aggression as well into his game. That he's, you know what I mean. I think that Tipperary have to be ruthless. There's lots of teams out there, are happy to throw balls over the bar to try and win the games. But I think the Tipperary are a team that can go for the juggler, and I think they have to. I think, like as you said there, with that space inside and the space that's created in forwards and the inside line, I think it's made for Jason Ford. If he gets a yard on the back at all, I mean, he has that, that ability to. And then look at his vision then as well, and his passing of the ball on top of what he can do on his own is phenomenal. Now look at another player that you mentioned there, like Mark Keogh is another guy like that's growing. And I suppose there was times when lads and we've all done it. If things weren't going your way, you'd be kind of nearly looking out onto the sideline. But as you said, all these boys seem to be hurling very relaxed. There's a lovely relaxed. They're working really hard for each other. There's great support on the bench. I think, which is going to be key on Sunday. I think Tipperary's panel is quite strong at the minute, and like you said, Liam Cahill left lads out there. Look at Liam Cahill is going to. If you're hurling well enough, he'll leave you out there, but he needs lads to take every minute and hurl for every minute. And if he needs to put in fresh legs, then that he has them ready to do that, and I think he has them.
Yeah, and John as well, another player that was part of the Tipperary team or coming through as you were part of the management team is Jake Morris. Back then, you were thinking, maybe this would be another knacky corner forward, but now he's turned himself into a bit of a machine, bit of a goal scoring machine. What did you see back then, and what are you seeing now?
I'm sure. Look at that was 2018, so you know what I mean. So when you think about it, it's 5 years ago. So he's after going through an awful lot more than Mark Keogh and these lads. They went on and won under 20s, under 21s on that year, and with Liam Cahill, Jake Morris was a phenomenal talent at that time as well. Look at the width of the post stopped the goal and it ended up in the net the other side of the field. And if the truth was to be told, we would have been very confident going forward if we got out of that game. I had never any doubt in Jake Morris, the hurler that he can be, and the hurler that he is at the minute. I love the way he's attacking players. He's calm as well, and he's, you know what I mean. They're moving ball around. He's very strong, as in he's very strong going forward. He'd remind you a little bit of Whelan in Galway, like that. You know what I mean. He's like, the very minute he gets that ball in hand, he's nearly attacking you straight away. So that's hard on a defense. Defenses don't like that all the time, and I think that he has that in his armory, and I'm really looking forward. And I'm delighted that it's not that he's hitting a rich vein of form, because he has that talent. There's no point in saying he doesn't. He does have that talent, and he's a fine, big, strong athlete. So I'm looking forward to seeing him on Sunday.
Yeah, Shane, what are you worried? Shane, what are you worried about from Galway this weekend?
I think both teams are actually the mirror image of one another. Their weaknesses are probably in defence, maybe in terms of pace, and I think both teams' strengths are in the forward line. In terms of Galway, like, I suppose we're still waiting to see a 70-minute performance for them. Like, they've been, like, I don't buy this tag of a flaky Galway team. They haven't been flaky. Like, they're just been inconsistent within games. They can produce the first 10 minutes in the final. They were going to run away with it. Then they fell asleep for 20 minutes, and then started the second half, went 8 down. Then came back, was it 111 to 4 points until the last minute goal. So like they're just very inconsistent within matches. Like, okay, every team is going to get a purple patch, but Galway sort of allow purple patches to go on for too long in matches. And but I think there's one thing about this Galway team is that I don't think you can question their character. Like, you don't come from 6 points down in Nolan Park to get a draw if you're flaky. You don't come from 12 down against Dublin for be playing poorly if you're flaky. Like, Tip will have to know, if they get any bit of a decent lead, 6-7 during the game, that they know Galway have the ability to come back. So that'd be one element. But look, I'd be optimistic that we can get some of our matchups right. Like, you go back to the Leinster final, Galway seemed very preoccupied with trying to shut down Owen Cody, and they brought Pádraig Mannion back to the full back line. I think Tip have so many weapons like that. Like, who do Galway choose? Like, Pádraig, does Mannion go on
back against Dublin as well?
I was just saying, does Mannion go on Morris for Keogh? Like, I just think Galway can't get too preoccupied with shutting down one Tip forward, because we have so many that could cause trouble. Whereas Kilkenny, you sort of knew if they went after Cody, you could probably try and keep them quiet to a certain extent.
Yeah, but I would have said that Galway don't trust their full back line at the moment, and they've taken Daithí Burke out of there. We all know why, but because they probably don't have anyone else they feel they can play centre back. But they're bringing Pádraig Mannion back there as well, which they did against Dublin for Donal Burke, because I really think, John, that they don't trust their full back line, which is ideal for Tipperary.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'd say, if the truth was be told, Pádraig Mannion doesn't like going back in there either. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He's a kind of a free spirit. He likes to come up the field, maybe pick a pint. So he doesn't like it. And I was at that Leinster final. He didn't like Cody was in front of him. There's good quality ball coming in. I think that's vital on Saturday, that the ball coming out of defence, and you know what I mean, that it's controlled, and look at the tip. Now, that's one thing about the tip. Tip lads are very good strikers of the ball, and I think that if they feed the ball in front of the forwards in as you said, in that full back line, look, as I can see, what I see with them is, I see Daithí Burke has gone to centre back. Daithí Burke seems to have an awful lot of work to do. He's covering for everybody in that back line, and he's running out of steam. And he's a great player. He's a great player, and it'll be interesting to see what the matchup is there, or who is the, you know what I mean, because he is going to be centre back, and he is a confident player, but he seems to be covering an awful lot of ground for other players in that back line, and sooner or later that's going to cause problems. And I think I think the more ball that goes into that forward line, the objective should be just to keep pumping ball down there, and that's it. And don't be look at the best ball you can, but at the same time get the ball down there. And I think the Tipperary lads will do damage. You know, with like the likes of Tynan. Look at Noel McGrath. Noel McGrath seems hurting very relaxed at the moment, and look, there isn't a brain out there like Noel McGrath or vision. So that's going to make an awful difference on Saturday as well. But look at I look at the Tipperary backs. look at I still have great faith in the in that unit. The likes of Brian Amara, Comino, and Conley, they're all fine, strong players. If you look at the other boys on the Galway team, saying Fitzgibbon, like Concannon, the what's called him, Nyland, all these lads, like the Tip boys really stood up strong in those competitions, and I think they're a lot further down the track than maybe their age.
Yeah, and also, John, from your knowledge of Galway hurling as well, Conor Cooney's a very dominant hurler up there, but he doesn't seem to be flying at all. And if you take the last performance against Kilkenny out of when Conor Whelan was unbelievable, he's had a quietish season as well. What are you expecting from those forwards, those key men?
Well, look at, I suppose, what I would say about the likes of Conor Cooney is Conor Cooney. Look at, if you feed if Conor Cooney gets out in his own, he'll put points over all day long. But if you are toe to toe with Conor Cooney, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it, and I believe any of our defence, any of them are a match and better in that area. Conor Whelan is the dynamo. Conor Whelan, like, he will attack backs no matter what. Like, he will put his neck on the line for Galway, and like you were talking about matchups, no doubt about it. Conor Whelan has to be marked, and it cannot be left. If you can nullify him, you won't. It's county senior hurling, so you're not going to nullify a player completely. But if you can nullify him in a way, you're going to hurt Galway, because they're really relying on him. And if you watch David Nylands, these lads, they're creating space for him, even though they would not be anywhere nearly. They would not work as hard or would not put their body on the line the same as Conor Whelan would.
Yeah, I was just trying to think about the Whelan thing. I was thinking the obvious thing would be Barrett that would pick him, but I'm not sure. I think Breen, just with Breen's pace. Okay, yeah. He's not a natural, maybe an out and out defender, but I think even if Whelan does manage to turn him, Breen has the pace to stay with him and maybe get back. And I think it could be Breen's job on Whelan on Sunday, or maybe to start with anyway.
Yeah, well, look at, you definitely need someone that's able to go toe to toe. That's for sure. And look at Breen. Give Breen credit. Like, Breen is sticky. I suppose he's. Look at you said it to me before, Shane, about would you ever think about putting him back full back? And look at I remember and look at Mikey Breen can play in lots of positions, and I suppose Mikey Breen, when he was at the other end of the field, as some days didn't go right for him. But Mikey Breen has all the tools as well, and if that ball stuck, he's a phenomenal athlete. So I'd have lots of faith in Mikey Breen. If he's given that job, no problem. Look at the way defence has gone now. You're not really sitting in a position. You're definitely on the move all the time, and we've seen cornerbacks scoring goals. So you know what I mean. Like, there's the Brian Amars, all these lads are well able to. Owen Conley's well able to roll Maher, get up the field, put the ball over the bar. So it's like. It's just the likes of Conor Whelan, the more than when Joe Canning and them lads were playing. If you're given a job to do on one of them, you have to do it till he's got into the dressing room, because you can't drop your head or drop your concentration, because they're too important to their game. So, and look, I suppose that's maybe too much talk about Galway, but because it's Tipperary that we should be talking about. But at the end of the day, you have to. These guys are very important. No more than TJ Reid when he was at his peak, or Richie Hogan. They had to be picked up, and if you were told if that was your job to do, you had to do it all day long, and that's it.
Yeah, Shane, I was going to say to Barry Heffernan, of course, has had some great days on Conor Whelan, marking him a couple of times out of it completely, and obviously he's a loss. But Craig Morgan has come back from his cruciate. It was a hamstring cramp, so he should be available again this weekend. But he was out so long, you're not going to expect a perfect performance last week. But has he done enough to be in the mix this weekend?
I get the sense that because they started him last weekend, I think they definitely wanted to have him in some position, maybe to contribute against Galway, maybe if not starting off the bench. It's hard to know. Like, initially they thought it was a cramp. Like, I suppose they'll only probably known in the last day or two how severe it was. And like, when you're coming off a long-term injury like that, the likelihood is some bit of a muscle is going to get tight, and that's what happens. So hopefully maybe it's not too bad. I don't think they'll risk starting him again. I do think that Barrett will come back in, like, and like, if he's ready to go, I think they might stick with Owen Connolly. But then it all depends on horses for courses. Like, if just say if Breen does go on wheeling and maybe Barrett goes on Concannon, do you go with Connolly on Island, or do you bring a smaller guy if Morgan is fit, or do you go with Johnny Ryan? Do you go with a sort of a nippier sort of a player for an Island? And like, it all depends on what. Like, Tip have the management had the flexibility of going the horses for courses route, maybe in defence or in attack, depending on what they want, like, in terms of where they feel they need a bit of, maybe if they need a bit of physicality someday, or they maybe need a bit more pace another day. So it all depends on what the management feel they need, and probably the same up the other end of the field. Like, I probably think if Garrod O'Connor is right, he'll probably come back in maybe with Seamus Callanan dropping out. Barrett and O'Connor maybe would be the only two, I would think, if they feel they're 100% ready to go, would be probably the only two changes from last weekend.
John,
I think the balance. I think the balance is right. He has to get the balance right. You know what I mean? I suppose I think the balance wasn't right against Waterford, and I know it was just a different kind of a game. The balance all over the field wasn't right, and you could nearly sense it from the start. He is great. He has great options, I think, in defence, and as you said, that Johnny Ryan is sticky player. Like, I'd say he was getting game time into Craig Morgan. You know, look at it. You know, they'll be thinking. I know they'll be thinking as far as Saturday, but they'll be thinking beyond Saturday too. And there's other days to, please God, there's other days to come. So to get him back into the groove, Galway and them lads will be watching out for all that kind of stuff too. Because at the end of the day, look, I know when you come back from injury now, in the modern game, you're back 100%, and you're 100% fitness nearly back straight away. But the game of hurling is so fast, and you just need that little bit of time to get your touch back in. Even though these are top class players, but I think he has great options there. The other one there is Cathal Mangan now is a big he's a big player for Galway. He's a big supplier. He's a big supplier of the ball. And I think, our defence will be as good as how our fellas out the field play. Do you know what I mean?
How do you make his new role a sort of nearly a deep line third midfielder? I'm not convinced it's getting the best out of him. I think sometimes while he's getting on an awful lot of ball, he's slowing the play down because he's trying to be too precise in how he delivers the ball in. And then sort of the same thing against Kilkenny and Dublin, where when they went to a certain lead down, they sort of decide, okay, we need to play with a bit more urgency, and they started to play at Galway. It suited their game to play at a higher tempo.
Yeah, that's the kind of a game. Like, look at that they played him almost as a sweeper last year against Limerick, and it didn't work. It didn't work. It actually created problems for them. I think that with Cathal Mangan, any defence would be delighted to see him out the field. Because he's a phenomenal hurler. He's a phenomenal striker of a ball. He's a dangerous forward, and he's playing his role of supplying. So I would be happy he's out the field. But he's a kind of a player that just coasts around. He won't mark. He'll just fall into positions. The goalkeeper will be looking for him. We cannot afford, say, for him to be getting those puck outs into his hand. If there's a matchup there, that is one player that needs to be. If you nullify that, you're nullifying the good supply of ball inside. Now, as you said yourself, he slows it down, but he's a kind of a lazy kind of a player.
Yeah.
He probably looks slower than it actually is. Yeah. Because he's a. Look, I think he's one of their weapons now, and they want him on the field. But I think that Tipperary have to come on Sunday with a real energy game, that they have to, you know what I mean, that it's foot to the floor from the get-go. And I think they have the backup if fellas weighing as they go along to keep that fresh. But I think Tipperary have to go at Galway from the very start.
Yeah, I think they will. And we just come back to Cathal Mangan. I think, as much as the flair players that Tip have, I think that there's four key players for me in terms of how how Tip need to play their game. It's Seamus Kennedy, Alan Tyne, and Conor Stapleton, Dan McCormick. They were so flat against Waterford, and like if they're not on it, you know the rest of the team is struggling. But they bring the energy, they do the dog work, I mean the athleticism. I thought Tyne and Stapleton were phenomenal against Offaly. Just the way any Galway player, any Offaly player in possession, they just hunted them down straight away. And I think if Mannion does play that sort of a free role in the middle, he won't. I just think they'll be on him like a shot. Like they won't turn him over as easily as a lot of the Offaly guys, but they'll definitely make sure he won't get that time maybe to pick out a pass and use his vision.
Yeah. Oh no, look at that. Absolutely. Like Dan McCormick seems to have a new lease of life as well, which is brilliant. And he's you'll bring Dan McCormick with you anywhere. He's just such a phenomenal. He's such a great attitude, and the same thing. Like he'll work so hard, but at the same time he'll do a job for you if you want him to do that job. And look at I think he will be given a job on the day on one of those players, and I think it'll be a key way of opening up the field for the rest of Tipperary, and for opening up our forward line. Our forward line need to go for the juggler. And you know, I mean, I think we the last time I was on with you, Shane, as well was before the Limerick match, the Munster final, and I was saying that Tipperary had a great chance, and we had a great chance below in Cork that day. But I think that when we had chances to punish them more, we didn't do it. And I think Tipperary need to punish every time they get a chance on Saturday evening. They need to punish.
Yeah, Shane, do you reckon Cathal Barrett and Grode O'Connor will come back into this game?
I think if they're right, I think they're the two most. Like Liam Cahill said after the game, that I suppose that Barrett, Bonner Maher, and Conor Boas, those three guys that didn't make the 26 last week, that they'll all be available this weekend. So you think if you're going to sit down and pick a team, you've got to go with maybe A, your more experience, and B, probably something close to what your best team has been. And his best team probably this year was probably, I think, the one that started against Cork when Ford was fit, Barrett was fit, O'Connor. I think that's closer to the best starting 15. I didn't think Seamus Callan did an awful lot wrong, but I just think to take advantage of that, I think if you play Seamus full forward and Gerard McInerney, I'm not sure. I think Gerard McInerney can be got at with Jason Ford to a bit greater degree, and maybe you get Callan on in the second half when those Galway defenders starting to tire. And like we saw in the last 10 or 15 minutes of the Leinster final, like, geez, the Galway mentally, physically the Galway defenders were tired, but mentally, like, geez, they made some horrendous mistakes, and it just showed that that's pure tiredness. Like, and if Tip can take advantage of that, you just know that Liam Cahill, one thing he's been doing all this year is getting Tip to be able to go to 70-75 minutes, and I definitely think they'll be able to do that.
Yeah, that's important that they're able to and it's probably going to be a warm enough evening as well. Like, so and look, we don't know how the weather's going to be, but definitely look at the. I think you need to go with your most energized team. Your, like, the fellas that are putting their hand up. Look at, obviously they see them more inside in training and stuff like that. You know who's on showing form, and look at, this is a great time of the year to be showing good form. But there is room for the Bonners, and there is room for Shane McCanlon and these lads, but not all together at the moment. I think they're definitely as you said, at a stage of a game, there's defenders in Galway would not like to see them lads coming.
No, if you were a Galway defender after 55 minutes and you saw Bonner Maher come on, and this a ball of energy here, and somebody that could win a couple of balls and win a free, like I suppose, like he did against Limerick when Limerick had that great start to the second half, the way Bonner robbed Dan Morrissey, won a free, and it just completely stalled Limerick's momentum and got Tip moving again, making key plays like that.
Yeah, and he's well able to do that, but it's just that look at, he can't be expected to be able to do that for 70 minutes, or do you know what I mean? So look at, there's definitely, the balance has to be right. The balance has to be right on Saturday evening.
John, can I ask you then about Seamus Callan? And again, because you were involved in the management team that was over 40 championship goals, like he brought his tally to the weekend against Offaly. No player in modern hurling comes anywhere close to that, especially because every one of them were from play. Like, what's he like to have as a dressing room, in the dressing room as a leader, and like, what a player?
Oh, sure. Look at Seamus Scanlon is meticulous in the way he prepares, and look at he's a great fella for the younger lads to look up to. He I suppose the biggest thing that I'd say he brings to every game is that he loves playing. There's a want there to play the whole time. He's not going around, I suppose, inside the dressing room laughing and thinking that, you know what I mean, I'm James Gannon, I scored all these goals and I'm above everybody else. He's not. He's going around, he's pulling lads' jerseys, he's giving lads thumps in the chest. He knows at the end of the day he would never have scored them goals unless he had other players all around the field. And Seamus Callan is a team player. He loves Tipperary. He I'd say, look at other lads might have sat down at this stage. He's gone through lots of injuries, gone through lots of different things, but there's a phenomenal passion there, and he's a good way about him. He'll bring younger players forward, and in fairness, his vision on the field as well. There's lots of different. He's so many different qualities outside of scoring goals. But as a leader in the dressing room, every player would look up to him. That's for sure.
Shane, I think you wanted to ask John a little bit about his playing career.
I know. I was just saying, John.
Can't remember that.
I suppose you came onto the scene, I suppose, when that Galway Tip rivalry sort of started to bubble up in 89, 90, 91. Like, so, I think that's where it'll probably be a lot of that maybe rivalry from maybe on the Galway side. And I always like to bring up John Denton and Tony Keady and what maybe Tip did or did not do in terms of his suspension. Like, but
we should still at that.
We heard an awful lot about it this weekend, won't we?
Yeah. No. Look at this. I've, as it says, I went to school in Portumna, so I've had that rivalry all my life. I played with the Galway schools teams, so I played with lads. I travelled to America with Galway lads, so there's always been I'm living in Portumna, so I've kids at home that will be shouting their head off for Galway on Saturday evening. You know what I mean? So I have zero support
in there now for the week.
I have zero support in my house. That's all I can tell you when it comes to Saturday evening. But look at it's a good rivalry. Look at it's no more than Tipperary and Kilkenny. Like they'd be sore if they're beaten. Their heads they'll be bouncing if they win. It's funny. It's very relaxed down here now as regards any sign. You wouldn't think there was a big match coming up at the weekend in Galway anyway. But you know what I mean. But look I think there's to be honest with you, I'd say they have a small bit of a doubt on their own. I say the whole Galway set up. To be honest with you, I'd say there's a bit of a doubt over it. But at the end of the day, it'll be all answered on Saturday evening. And there's always. I suppose I'll sum it up about the Galway thing, the Keady affair. So, and Shane Stapleton, you'll understand this from being in Gaelic Park. What happened that time was Tipperary were playing a team called Laois, a club team. So they were called a Laois club team, and Tony Keady wasn't playing hurling at all. And when he was actually in Gaelic Park, and when the Tipperary team came out of the dressing room with the jerseys on, he got so wound up, he tugged out, and even though he was illegal to play, and he played against them. Now that's how much the Tipperary jersey done to say the likes of Tony Keady. So that side of it is really, you know what I mean. It's a really healthy side. Like you can go back to what you call the corner forward for Galway that he got hurt, Ian Ryan.
Yeah.
And the Tipperary lads went down to Galway, down to a function or a benefit for Ian Ryan that time when he got the belt of the head. So there's loads of good rivalry and loads of great banter. And look at the end of the day, everyone wants to win this match on Saturday evening. And look, I hope we're on the right side of the line, but I'd be confident going forward, to be honest with you.
Just as talking going forward, I suppose regardless of maybe who wins this weekend, I suppose Tip or Galway will get a massive bounce. So you'd think at the start of the year, Limerick were a long way ahead of everyone, but now that Hannon is out for the semi, Finn is gone, Cian Lynch is struggling for form, for fitness. Gerard Hegger is struggling for form. You think Tip, Galway, Clare, Kilkenny, maybe I don't think probably Dublin probably have the tools to win an All-Ireland this year. Like, you think the other 4 counties, you think, God, we have a massive opportunity here to win an All-Ireland, not just to maybe, it's not a foregone conclusion that it was maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
No, but I think it wasn't a foregone conclusion either. Then, like, you know, it's up to the horses you have, and I think, look at to win an All-Ireland now, it's all about panel. It's all about panel, and if your panel is tight, I think you're definitely going to suffer. Like as many as players as Limerick have, they're still you know what I mean. There's still the same couple of lads are coming in all the time, but I don't think they're lighting the place up. Now, I think that I suppose, look at I think going forward, I think the team that can move the ball around very well are a team that can open up the likes of Limerick, even as strong as they are. And I think Tipperary have that ability. Look, we have to get over Galway first, but I think Tipperary have that ability to move the ball fast, and I think that'll put any team under pressure. I suppose 12 months ago, and look at it, there was lads on your own show, and we were saying about how far ahead Limerick and this were in strength and conditioning, and how far Tipperary were behind, and now all of a sudden Tipperary are in the shake-up, and nobody's talking about that at all. So all that stuff, look at a few years ago, it was the very same thing. Look at the Galway lads are so far ahead, and Lucas went from Tipperary to Galway, and overnight he turned them all into animals. Do you know what I mean? But that didn't happen. Like, I mean, there was loads of work done, and there's been loads of work. Like, just say, take the likes of Brian Amar and all them lads. So them lads they're in phenomenal condition. Like, and you know, from a young age up along there, we're doing all the right things. So everything is after tightening up. And believe you me, this All Ireland is wide open. And I was asked the question, I'd say probably January or February, and I said, what team would you put like as a fairly top contender? And I said Clare, because I thought that Clare have that attacking, they go for the juggler, you know. So, and Tipperary are in that kind of frame of mind now as well, and they have the bodies to do it. So I think there's a great championship to be played yet.
Yeah, John, you've been great with your time. Just get your prediction then for this weekend to finish up.
For the two matches.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd be very confident in the group of players. I'd be very confident in the lads that are preparing them. I think it was I suppose it was a great Liam Cahill in the position and with his backroom team, because of their history with all these lads coming along. I think was a great. It pushed him along a lot quicker than say someone else coming in fresh. But I do like the attitude in the. I suppose there's an attitude in Tipperary at the minute. You know, even the bit of a ruckus after the match in Limerick, and I was on holidays out in Portugal that time, and there was I suppose the United Nations was inside in this pub and we were watching it, and banter was mighty. It was brilliant, and to see that kind of stuff, as in, look, it was nothing wrong about it, but I just think that
they came behind each other.
Yes, exactly. Everyone was, and I think that's the way the Tipperary, like, nobody has mentioned John McGrath either. You know what I mean? John McGrath is another. He's a lethal weapon. He's a lethal weapon. He
had I don't know if you were at the game. Like, he had some 10 minutes when he came on now last Saturday. Like, he scored 1-1 and he set up 2 goals. Like, he's like, against a tiring defense. If he gets ball, like, his brain will, like, I just think if the longer Tip go in this championship, he as maybe an impact sub off the bench will be huge. And even against Waterford when we were well beaten, like, he was decent enough off the bench as well. Like, so he seems that he'd love to be playing and starting more often. He seems to have a role now for the rest of the year.
Yeah. Oh no, look at and he's a cool head as well. And look at John, and look at John has got goals when we needed them, and I think to have that group of lads fighting to get in. Like, and if they're not on that starting team, that means they're on, like, say they're in training against this starting team. So the competition has to be very, very good inside in Morris Park at the moment. So prediction, definitely, I'd be very, very confident in Tipperary. Like, I suppose there was many years that Tipperary played Galway, and you would have to say to be nothing in it. But I do think that Tipperary can put a bit of light between themselves and Galway at the moment.
Which means you'll have a few upset kids in the car on the way home.
I'll have definitely one lad that doesn't take it well. He doesn't take it well. If it doesn't go his way, he doesn't take it well now. But look at that's all good and that's all healthy. Healthy rivalry. But sure, look at I suppose my wife is from Offaly.
Nice double now, wouldn't it?
My first two kids were born before we left New York. And Harry says he was born in Galway. So that's it. I'll leave it at that.
Well, look, John, you've been brilliant for the time. It was great chatting to you. We'll do it again.
No bother. Thanks, lads.
Sure, John.
Okay.
Brilliant to have John on there.
It'd
be a fair old double for the people that are in or around your neck of the woods there.
Oh, yeah, it should be lovely. Remember in 2014 we had the same. I remember we beat Galway in Thurles in the qualifier, and I think 7 days later we beat Offaly in Portlaoise. So it'd be nice to do it again, to put the other way around. So I suppose I'm the same as John. I'm confident enough in this Tip team that they can win. I suppose it's all going to be on the Galway message boards now that the arrogant Tip are back. But what's the difference between confidence and arrogance? You have to believe in your team, and I think a lot of Tipperary supporters believe in this team at the moment. Whether to win an All-Ireland this year is another thing, but like, you think last Saturday 10,000 people in Tullamore, and I'd say 8 of them were Tip. Like, 8,000 people don't go to a match that was nearly a foregone conclusion without thinking, geez, that they know what they're watching even after the Waterford game. So I expect a huge Tip crowd in Limerick on Saturday evening. I don't know whether it's a technical thing or problem, but a lot of tickets seem to have been gone yesterday, but I don't see the 44,000 capacity being tested. And I suppose going to their game, you think Clare probably will have too much for Dublin. Maybe 5 to 8 points. I think, like, so I don't know.
5 to 8 points.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd say this will be tight enough. Like, Dublin do have some scorers there. By the way, just to jump back to Tip and belief and all that kind of stuff, I feel like I was believing in this Tip team a long time before you, that I was saying, we'll get out of Munster, we'll do this, we'll do that. Yeah. And now eventually you're on side. I'm starting to worry now that Tip will slip up this weekend.
Oh, sure, look, isn't that always the time to you start to believe, you start to get, maybe the belief gets too much and then you fall. But I don't know, I just think, I'd be surprised if Tip, the 7, like, they didn't deal with the 7-day turnaround after Limerick, but then that I'm sure they just got so high for that game, it was hard to maybe get down and refocus quickly. Like, while they were very focused for last weekend, I don't think mentally they would have really had to steel themselves. Like, and I think they'll be ready for Saturday evening.
Okay, so just back to the Dublin game. If you look at some of the score, and Dublin weren't that impressive against Carlow at the weekend. Eventually pulled away and won by 10, which is, job done. But some of the firepower that they have in attack, like Keane Boland, we've seen flashes of it throughout the season, but like, he's got a very high ceiling if he really hits form. Danny Sutcliffe is coming back a little bit more to the type of player we would have seen a few years ago. Donald Burke, he's got risks that, any of the traditional teams would be only delighted to see.
Rory, see a knee bandage on him though at this stage of the year, like, so.
It's not ideal. No, it's certainly not ideal. But like, those lads are all very good scorers.
I thought their midfield against Carlow was excellent. Like, they're real dynamos there, and
Mark Rogan and Chris O'Leary.
Yeah,
like, Mark Rogan's a player I would have seen a good bit with Kilmacud Crokes up here in Dublin over the years, and I wouldn't have, I would have seen him in the backs most of the time, but he's certainly, because he's got that mobility and he's a good ball striker and he's clever, he's started growing into that role as well. And Chris O'Leary is just a great ball striker. So they really need to make sure that their central spine is really impacting this game. So Owen O'Donnell, obviously very good full back, everyone knows that. Conor Burke, really composed centre back, just lovely on the ball.
Yeah.
And I know it probably seems like I'm touting one of my friends here as well, but like Sean Brennan then in the goals as well, he's got a laser for a puck.
Yeah.
All those lads need to be absolutely on the money in this game. But Clare, I think there is a big benefit playing at this venue because they know the place so well. And I can't think of how many times Dublin would have played here. Certainly not in front of a massive crowd.
Yeah, like it's. I'd say Micheál Donoghue would maybe use that to maybe if they're eventually the CCC, like they're dragging us down practically into Clare's second home. Like we're the ones that were being discommoded by to make a double header. But look, I just think it was just unfortunate the way like you have Tip, Galway and Clare, and look, somebody was going to have to lose out. I don't think it was ever the case that they were going to maybe bring Clare and Dublin to Tullamore or Portlaoise, like so. But look, I think no more than maybe Micheál Donoghue wanting to get Dublin into Croke Park. I think he'll see we're one of the big boys. We'll go to the big stadium anywhere in the country, and we'll take on anyone. Like for like first 5-10 minutes would be very important. Like if there's any maybe hangover from Clare from the Munster final, you've got to maybe take advantage of that. Just get yourself into the game and not allow yourself to get too far away. And look, it's one of those games where I think a lot of Clare supporters will expect to win, and the longer Dublin stay in their coattails, no similar maybe than what Dublin had to endure against Carlow. Like Dublin were in a hiding to nothing last weekend, and like it always sort of a sticky game. Like if you allow Carlow to stay in it for as long as they could, and like when the Carlow got back to 2 points with 10 minutes to go, you said, "Jesus, like this is on here," but like Dublin just coolly pulled away to win by 10. So I think they'll have been very, very pleased with how that game finished up.
And keep an eye on Dara Purcell as well. He's another upcoming player for Dublin that'll run at defences, that'll set up scores all over the place, and he'll run it up the guts whenever he feels that the opportunity is on.
I'm not saying a comfortable 6-8, but maybe Clare might pull away towards the end. Like I just think you may sometimes 6-8, but there's so many scores coming hurling. You could go from level to 6 down very, very quickly. Like so, that's where I'm thinking 6-8, but not without Clare. Definitely haven't earned it.
Okay, so this weekend, Tipperary camogie team will be up against Wexford. How do you see that going?
Yeah, I suppose we had Gerlin on last week, so I suppose after the great win over Dublin, I suppose definitely the two toughest games in the group are coming now, away to Wexford and then away to Kilkenny. And I look off the back of Wexford's excellent result against Kilkenny with coming back and getting the draw. You think this is definitely a major test. Like I would have thought maybe when the draw was made, this would have been probably a comfortable away win for Tip. But now that Wexford are coming in with a bit of confidence, bit of belief, probably a good crowd in Enniscorthy on Saturday, this is going to be a fair test to Tipperary. And I think if they come through this with any manner of a win, like they'll be through to the All-Ireland knockout stages, and then they can go to Nolan Park and with probably two things to chase: one, potentially getting straight to an All-Ireland semi, and two, maybe taking down Kilkenny, which after maybe beating Galway in the league this year and winning a Munster championship, to take a scalp of one of the big three in the middle of the championship would be another box ticked. So but look, they have to take care of Wexford first, and I just think the 2 weeks gap after the Dublin game, they'll have had a chance to maybe refocus the minds. They'll have had a chance to look over Wexford and seeing what they did, and there's no doubt Wexford are improving, and this is going to be a severe test. But I do like the what this Tip camogie team are doing. I fancy them to get the job done on Saturday.
Yeah, and it is important to strike a blow against some of the big teams as you meet them, especially Kilkenny the following day out as well. And then the Tip ladies are meeting Galway this weekend as well, so another important game.
Yeah, Sunday in Temple at 2 o'clock. It's just what Galway, great win over Cork in the first round of the Ladies' Championship last weekend in Pearse Stadium, won by 6 points. So it's a tough ask for Tipperary, and I think they have to go to Clonakilty to play Cork the following Sunday. So like if Tipperary have any chance of maybe getting through to the knockout stages, they have to win one of these two games. You think the home game against Galway is the best opportunity. Maybe Galway might feel after beating Cork that they have the hard work maybe done. They've got the big win, and that they should be able to take care of Tip. But because Tip will be coming in fresh, they've had a long build up. Like you look through the Munster Championship, Tip lost to Cork, to Kerry, and to Waterford, but they were very competitive in all three. And we know that Kerry had a great win over Dublin last weekend. Cork are always strong. Like so, like I think Tip will be competitive if they can get Ashley Maloney firing, if they can get one of the Kennedys firing. Like I think it'll be tight. Like I think it'll be a tough ask for Tip to win, but I think Tip will be competitive in this one. Just hope maybe to get a good big Tip support out there in Temple 2. It's a fine venue for this type of a championship game, and like Tip will need all the support and get to get that win on Sunday.
Okay, and then just a reminder that the Nina Guardian is out in all the shops locally at the moment. Plenty of coverage there of Tipperary hurling and all Tipperary Gaelic games. Yeah. Anything in particular, Shane, that you want to point people towards?
So we've a few things. I suppose it's sort of a Tip Galway vibe this weekend. We have a feature in Portumna Golf Club at the moment. I suppose they're in our area. There's a lot of North Tip, maybe portion of North Tip would be members up there. So plenty of reading in it this week. But looking forward to Saturday now. It'd be fantastic if on Saturday night we're preparing for an All-Ireland semi-final, more probably against Limerick, and like it'd be great to be planning for a trip to Croke Park. Like Tip haven't been up there since 2019, so it'll be super. You'd love to maybe get it done in normal time, but there's the nagging thing in the back of my mind. We've had penalty shootouts in Gaelic football. We're due in hurling, and
you go again, misery guts again all year.
No, I'm just saying, but it's going to happen at some stage. Like we haven't had one in senior intercounty hurling as far as we haven't had one, so we're due. Hopefully, it won't happen in this one, but you just think it was 9 of the last 10 championship meetings between Galway and Tip would be 1-score games either way, like. And even the one that was the outlier was the 2014 qualifier in Thurles, when Tip won by 9,
and only turned it after the hour mark.
Yeah, and like that's fake. Like we were 6 down after 50 minutes. Like so, like even that was tight. That was a false final scoreline. So, I just as long as we're ahead planning for a trip to Croke Park in July, I don't mind.
Yeah, well, to me, I think Tipperary will come out on top. I think it's going to be a barn burner as well. Like you were saying, these games are always close and they're normally really tense affairs. So I think
John Keenan being appointed ref, he will let both teams play. So.
Swallow the whistle, John. Swallow the whistle. That's what I say. But like, I think it's going to be really tight. But the reason, and I think John and maybe yourself both alluded to this, is that Tipperary, to me, have a more balanced team. And Kyle Barrett will come back in. It'll add further speed that, Jake Morris brings back into the team. Both of them missed the Munster final. I like that Craig Morgan is back available, even though it would be a lot to expect him to hit the ground running at this stage of the season. You go through that Galway team. I think there are question marks over the goalie. And Rhys Shelley's made a mistake or two as well, even though his puck is beautiful. But Aidan Murphy's, there's a bit of a question mark. Garrod McInerney, there's a lot of good qualities, but there are areas you can get at him. Dahi Burke, is he in his best position? We know why he's there, but is he in his best position? Not entirely sure. Joseph Coody at wing forward, he was shut down by Blanchfield the last day after scoring 5 against Dublin. Evan Nyland, he can snipe scores, but he doesn't really dominate games. Maybe I'll eat my words this weekend. And the likes of Conor Cooney isn't really getting it done. Now, Kevin Cooney's form in the last 10 minutes against Kilkenny, I think that was interesting, and he could be a bit of a thorn in Tip's side this weekend. But I'll go with Tip by 2 points, and hopefully we're smiling on the show next Wednesday.
To be great now, yeah. I'd hate for the season to be over after Saturday, but I'd say it'll be a sort of a very, very nervy evening. I'd have no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, well, that's it for the show this week. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you all again next Wednesday.
Cheers.